let's begin by respectfully acknowledging we are zooming in from the region of Muskoka, which is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe. Gravenhurst Against Poverty is committed to not only acknowledging this, but also to learn and educate ourselves, to create opportunity and honor sacred spaces, and to take action towards supporting and being committed to walking the path together in respect, peace, and harmony for future generations. Miigwech. So it is my pleasure to welcome everyone to another speaker series. This is our May speaker series, our conversation. And so today it is my honor to introduce Jheniffe. And Jheniffe is bringing a wealth of knowledge regarding resiliency and building resiliency. And so I will pass it on to Jheniffe for that. And she will talk more about her presentation and her background and her training for resiliency. And a little bit about Gravenhurst Against Poverty, I think is important to just share, is that we have a mental health committee, and a part of that mental health committee is what the speaker series came out of. An idea came out of that committee. And so since September, we have been hosting the speaker series with the hopes that we're building more knowledge and education throughout our community, and that will help us have different lenses to view our community members in and our friends in, and build compassion within our relationships throughout community. And so we will continue with the compassion series throughout the summer. And so just as a heads up, the next couple that we will be having, so in June, on June 18th, we will be welcoming Sarah, and Sarah will be speaking from the SAIL program, and she'll be talking about the concept of bystander consent, and also about the online reality that they're facing and they're seeing at SAIL regarding grooming and coercion when it comes to sexual assault. So that will be our next one in June. And then in July, we will have Lauren from Sexual Assault Services coming to speak about also a bit more about consent, so the culture of consent, but also rape culture and what that means and what that looks like in our local community and in our global community. So those are the next two that will be coming up in June and July, and both are presenters from Sexual Assault Services. And so back to today. And so thank you so much, Jheniffe, for making time to do the presentation, and I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Desiree. I'm happy to be here today, not just because I'm so fond of GAP and all the wonderful community work, because resiliency is something very near and dear to my heart, my family. I attribute myself to being resilient, and kind of found a coming of home of when I found this training, and it became such a huge part of reframing my own deficits and my own human experiences into a strength-based approach. I will give kudos to the PowerPoint that you are going to see is based on an organization that's called Reaching In, Reaching Out. Jennifer Pearson, who is now retired, a lovely psychotherapist that is retired, did provide this training to the Children's Services Department at the district, giving us adult skills and children's skills, and it hit home so much that I was like, I want to do the intensive training, and went off for a week with her, and yeah, just found it to be really life-changing and applicable to life and family. And I do want to acknowledge that this is a human space, so I will share part of my own personal story, which means my family's story. So in respect to that, just so everyone knows, I'm fine with you sharing that story, but if it's, you know, beyond this circle, I would hope that I would keep it a confidential, safe space. So that being said, I'd like to hear from the people that are here and what you think resiliency is and why you showed up today. I'll just go in order because I've got my screen here. Des, you want to go?
Sure. So I think resiliency, the way I look at it is kind of the knowledge we carry that we can bounce back, even when tough things happen or obstacles are presented, but it's kind of having the internal knowledge that we can bounce back through it using our toolboxes. So yeah, that's me. Thanks.
Great. Bonnie?
Bonnie's
Oh,
muted.
you're muted.
You're muted, Bonnie.
Sorry, yeah. Yeah, I was thinking exactly along the same line. The kind of, when you think of resilience, it's when things happen, you can bounce back from it. You have some strategies and a toolbox for sure, as Des says. And I think that, you use the word reframing. I think that's a great strategy to apply when you've experienced something that has had a big impact on you, and having a way of looking at it and responding to it is what resiliency is about for me.
That's great, Bonnie. It's great. I love that keyword being respond. John.
Hi, I'm here in conjunction with GAP and with Desiree to co-facilitate, but in my 20, 30 years of work in the mental health field, it seems to me as a counselor that resiliency, we used to talk a lot about coping skills. I think resiliency is like taking it to maybe a slightly higher level or deeper level. I'm not sure which direction, but it seems to move beyond just coping, but coping in style or coping with sustenance that enables you to get beyond survival to living with more fulfillment. I think is how I see resiliency.
I love that. It's great. It's great. John Cooper, I've got you next here.
Wow, I didn't realize, Jheniffe, that there was a participation element. I'm here as a GAP member and as a Rotarian to learn more about some aspects of life that I've never had to deal with. I've been a spoiled little guy for my 81 years, and I think whenever one feels the need to become resilient because of problems, I find the best way is to help others, to volunteer, to understand, to empathize and support other folks who are dealing with some struggles. And that seems to be the best way to relieve one's personal state of temporary depression or difficulty, to focus away from oneself to support others. And in an organization like GAP and the wonderful YWCA Circles program, there are so many opportunities to be supportive and helpful. And I think that's one of the best ways to demonstrate a way to be, or a great way to become and to be resilient. If that makes any sense, I'm not sure.
It makes lots of sense. I love it. Jeff, with the Northern Lights behind you there.
I could change that.
No, I love it. I feel like I haven't seen them in a very long time, so it's great.
I guess I was looking through events on Facebook, and saw Gravenhurst Against Poverty and Resilience. And I was interested in joining more from a community resilience standpoint. So resilience from a community standpoint has a lot to do with sustainability and using what we need for today, but leaving something for future generations and building a stronger community and helping to solve some of the social and economic issues that are facing our community. I'm from Bala, by the way, but I am actively working on a project to increase the supply of affordable housing in Muskoka, with specifically in the Gravenhurst area. Hope to build 50 to 100 new economical houses. But also interested in food security and resilience of the food security system. So in addition to that, we hope to build we'll probably start off with a 1 acre greenhouse to increase local food production. And from that standpoint, I'm looking to meet people, looking to partner with organizations that feel that that's worthwhile work. So anyway, that's why I'm here today.
That's great. I love it.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Kelly.
Thanks, John, for our shout out to circles and getting ahead, and for GAP, obviously the resiliency factor there. But I think resiliency is just showing up, first of all. I mean, life is hard. And when you can show up and put on that face, even if it's a sad one, you're there and you're gaining new knowledge and experience, and your neurons are on fire, and it's great. And I think it's mindset shift. When you're there, if the intention of why you're there and the impact of why you're there, I think it changes your perspective on your resiliency. And so it's not letting life get you down.
I love it. I love all of it, because I think it's so important when we do these types of talks and conversations and you have someone that comes in to be a trainer, that the knowledge that's already existing here, because we all have a wealth of knowledge, just gets validated. I don't tend to come and talk about a definition of resiliency. That's not where I come from, because you could look at so many different cultures and contexts and find so many different things. So I think it's important for everybody's learning experience that they're just validated and heard that, yes, resiliency, I always say it's adapting, right? And having those coping skills, and hearing Bonnie say responding versus reacting, and, Desiree saying that inner knowledge, and talking a lot about communities, because obviously healthy communities are resilient communities. So that being said, I'm going to get into my share screen. I'm not sure if here we go. I'm not the most technology advanced human, but here we go, guys.
Jheniffe, I didn't know if you got Pam. Sorry, I had to grab a
Oh,
kid.
Pam, oh my gosh. Pam, I'm sorry. Pam, your thoughts on resiliency.
No apologies needed. No, I was off screen for a while because I was having lunch.
Okay. Yes, go, Pam, resiliency, your thoughts.
No, appreciate everybody's perspective that was given before. With Jeff's comment on community, that certainly is a big one right now. I had to participate in a presentation yesterday on economic development for Muskoka, and the stats for that were horrific. So it certainly brought to mind the resiliency through that. But I think it's and based on John's comment too, sort of more than coping, it's the ability to live through it and come out the other side, and growing that perspective, and living through those experiences, and not just putting on that front of, getting through it.
Absolutely. Thriving, right? Well-being. I do love this quote by Khalil Gibran. Out of our suffering have emerged the strongest souls. The most massive characters are seared with scars. Quite often I use this in the work I do of reframing to clients, when they're down and they're out, I tend to say, like, you were the character that these books are made of, that the Oscars, we don't want to hear a story about them. We want to hear a story of a character that's rooted in resilience, right? So I just am really passionate about that quote. I do want to acknowledge that the Reaching Out, Reaching In program, you'll see RERO at the bottom, is derived from the book, The Resilience Factor. It's a really great book, and definitely goes through all the different abilities if anybody loves to read. Dr. Karen Ravich and Andrew Chate, they did work with a prominent professor, psychologist, Dr. Martin Seligman, who's probably a lot are familiar with his positive psychology. And this program is based on the PED resiliency program as well. So I've taken a 12-hour training and kind of condensed it to a 1-hour Zoom. So you guys are my first trial here. So we know that resiliency helps us steer through adversity, overcome childhood disadvantages, same idea of the ACEs, adverse childhood exposure, bounce back from trauma, and reach out. And part of that reaching out is taking new risks, new challenges. And a resilient view is one that can handle stress, it gains perspective, and it deals with problems and conflict, but it also is how they view problems. So viewing problems is more viewed as a challenge, as an opportunity to look inside oneself and be resourceful, right? And those are the resilient mindsets. So studies have shown that those people that are considered to be resilient, they do live longer, have a healthier life, more successful in jobs, school, and community, happier in relationships as well. And, you know, I would say they're less prone to depression, but I'd also say they're less prone to anxiety, aggression, all those types of mental health concerns. Something to note before diving into all the different strategies and thinking habits is to please note that somebody that does have experienced trauma and has a mental health disorder or concern is obviously going to respond in a different way than, say, somebody who has, there's somebody who was on here talking about housing and food security. So I think a lot of people that GAP tends to work with are going to see that their coping strategies are a lot different. And when we talk, I hear Pam talking about community as well. I think it was Jeff, that maybe it's more of a piece is how, when we in relationship with those people can help bring out those capabilities in them, right? So another little sharing circle, just throwing it out there. Right now, 2021, 2020 has kind of left a mark on us. Can anybody say like what they are doing routinely that's actually been a help and assistance, a strength in their day-to-day? I'll start.
Getting outside.
Getting outside, yeah.
And walking, and shifting, cutting out the amount of news, and just looking for more silver linings.
Mm-hmm. So going out in nature, exercise. I'd like to summarize the news one. It's just like a good boundary one. It's like what you're letting in. Callie, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I started during COVID, like right from the start, I started getting up at 4:15 and going for a lovely walk and meditating. And I've noticed it really impacts my day in the sense that if I don't do that, I'm like a squirrel in traffic.
Totally. Anybody else have some routine that they've been bringing to? Jeff, yeah, go ahead.
I'm pretty lucky in that while I'm not paid for my work, I enjoy it terribly, and it's a real passion for me. So I get to spend my day trying to move a project forward from early stage to something that I think will be great one day. So it really feels, I really get a huge amount of fulfillment from it. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it's great. I don't know that everybody's work would be there, but that's great. Body, yeah, go ahead.
I think for me, GAP itself has been a tremendous strength and has increased tremendously in my life. Of course, taking on the chair position was a big part of it, but it has become a strength in terms of working with such a tremendous number of wonderful volunteers, almost all of whom are sitting here. Jeff's next. He's shown interest, so everyone else here has played a role with GAP, which is great. So you know how fulfilling it is, and it's a tremendous distraction from, you know, like what's going on. It's like there's something to do, there's something to focus on, there's the work to be done, and it's been great strength for me.
Anybody else have anything else to add?
I was just going to share. Oh, sorry, go, Jeff.
Oh, okay. I was just going to sort of following on the words of Bonnie. I think part of working through the last year and a half, if you like, with the onset of COVID, that being involved in a community program has been really, really important. And I can't take credit for necessarily looking for this program and then getting involved. I was somewhat dragged or influenced by my wife, who was instrumental in the development of GAP, and I kind of tagged along. But it's been most rewarding in terms of what we're doing, and also connecting with some of the people involved with GAP, some of the people here today. And but I think that's been key, is that kind of community involvement that hasn't shut down when almost everything around us has been shutting down. So it's been it's been a game saver, if you like. Yeah.
Wonderful. Des?
Yeah, I was, I guess, along the same lines. I think continuing to build relationships when everything's been shut down and closed, and building those relationships through community volunteering, and GAP's been a huge part of that. And the other piece is just actually making time, I think, more intentionally in the last 4 months to play with my kids, like actually become a child alongside them in a way, right? And, you know, jump on the trampoline, not just watch them jump on the trampoline, and get in the sandbox with them. And I think that's really been a really good grounding mechanism throughout COVID.
Yeah. I love that, Des. I'm going to steal that one too. So I've been a lot more playful being at home with Colton. Of course, Colton not being able to socialize at school. It's kind of like, you know, before you'd say, go entertain yourself. And now I really do need to be a part of entertaining him. And it's really grounding to play and to be present in the moment. Hearing people talk about the importance of connection and community is so paramount to resiliency. Because when we look at these critical abilities, these are 7 abilities listed. That's based on, again, this resiliency factor and what's come out of Penn University. Emotional regulation. You're a child, you're working with someone in crisis, you're wanting to support your friend. What we're trying to do in a supportive, healthy relationship is help regulate those emotions, right? And very critical ability for resilience: emotional regulation, impulse control, self-efficacy, causal analysis, realistic optimism, empathy, and reaching out. So that being said, like when you look at your strengths, you're looking at like, where does that fit in what I'm doing? You know, where does that fit in? We look at emotional regulation as being able to keep calm under pressure, reduce intensity and the duration of emotion, and having constructive emotional expression, right? And the ideal is to be able to calm and focus when we're dysregulated, right? Using a toddler, for example, you know, they have that tantrum and the stop. We want to say, you're hurt. How can I help? What can I do? You know, the spouse that's come down from a really hard day at work and everything went wrong. Do you want to go have a tea? Do you want to have a coffee? We're trying to help those regulate it. I'm trying to frame this because I'm hearing a lot of people talk about the importance of community and gaps. So how can we help when somebody's coming in, right? And food is so paramount to that. Like, I don't think the ability to concentrate, the ability to focus when you're hungry or in need, right? So when you think of that in a community capacity, you know, gap is meeting a need, right? And when you have those people walking through your door and maybe have experienced trauma and mental health, maybe look at the role as, how can I help them regulate, right? Impulse control, definitely challenging for people that have an impulse disorder, but of course that's taking control over the urge, because I'm sure we've all had that urge when we're in traffic to be like, you know, right away react. It's delaying that gratification, pausing before acting, and stopping and choosing whether to act. Goal setting and following through is also a part of impulse control. And then as well with building resiliency, the self-efficacy, right? Believing that I'm competent, believing that I'm able to do this, and having the accurate perception of yourself and the confidence, right? That you can influence the circumstance, and looking for what's controllable and persevering, right? And then causal analysis. So sometimes what we think has happened hasn't really happened, you know? How we perceive, there's, you know, have you heard the idea where there's your opinion, there's my opinion, and there's what actually happened, right? So being able to analyze the problem and get to the root cause is key. The details are accurate and you're dissecting it, right? You're dissecting. And then I think it was John there who said that he's lived most of his life, you know, with a silver spoon, realistic optimism, right? And maintaining hope. And that's not, you know, being always looking at it through a Pollyanna type lens. That's looking at it like, this happened, what's next, right? It's not, it's based in reality and has positive outlook despite the challenging circumstance. I quite often look at the work that we do in community is how can we foster this, because it's even like the small hopes, right? The small hopes that end up building to the bigger hopes. It has, sorry, did I hear someone? Positive outcomes, effort, communication, and most importantly is the ability to maintain hope, right? For realistic optimism, because sometimes we just feel that the problems are too big and we don't see it. So how can we like chunk things down? And of course, empathy, which everyone here working with GAP, I'm sure is no stranger to empathy, understanding the feelings and needs of others, identifying the feelings and reading those non-verbal cues, because not everybody is going to be able to reach out. So sometimes fostering resiliency is something that we want to do in our communities and our relationships. So how can we read those non-verbal cues? I also like to take a minute with this and also talk about empathy in the terms of us having self-compassion to ourselves. You know, over COVID, it's been a real challenging time. So I think being aware that, you know, the flip side is having empathy for others, but also having self-compassion for yourself to just like, you know what? I forgot to make my kid lunch today. I'm going to do better tomorrow. Like, you know, like giving yourself that grace. Because there's a lot of parents that are like juggling the mess of being working parents and at home. So giving yourself that self-compassion and talking to yourself as a friend would. And then, of course, reaching out. It's a reality-based assessment of the situation that requires a strength to be able to ask for help, to know your limitations, to take risks, to seek out new opportunities, and to offer support. So, after talking about the emotional capabilities that one can foster to be resilient in themselves and foster in their community relationships, we have to look at our thoughts. And our thoughts about adversity are quickly linked to our feelings, and then the feelings turn into an action. React, emotions are in charge. And as Bonnie said earlier, responding. Responding are when we are in charge of our emotions. We stop, we breathe, we rethink, using things like the causal analysis that I mentioned, using things like the self-efficacy, the competence. We're not in an impulse. We're not, dysregulated emotionally. So we have tools to do that, right? Mindfulness is a great tool, relaxation techniques of all sorts, going for a walk. I think that there's been a surge of pets over COVID because we've realized how helpful pets can be in just calming and saying, okay, I'm here, I'm just going to stop, pet my cat, take care of something else, right? So the 3 R's of resiliency, great tool. Relax, reflect, respond, right? Crisis situation, emotionally dysregulated, impulse, all this stuff happening. How can I calm and focus right now? Does anybody have any stuff they do daily? I heard Kelly mention how that she's incorporated meditation into her daily life.
Breathing, always breathing.
Breathing,
First.
yes. The breath is so important. The breath
Hard
is
to do in your mask, but yes.
Yeah. The breath is so important, absolutely. I have no goals for myself when it comes to meditation. I love the idea of being able to meditate, but always have taken on this self-compassion piece where I just actually lie down for 5 minutes. I have no objective other than just to be still. I did a wonderful workshop with Lama Rod Owens, who was talking about resiliency through a Buddhist lens and was talking about resiliency and healing. And his big takeaway was just the sense of urgency that we always have, right? We always have this sense of urgency to quickly respond to an email, to quickly respond to a text, and very much it's been a North American culture to be glorify busyness, to glorify busyness. So I'm trying to stop, right? To what actually has to be responded to right now, right? Or react. And then reflecting. So reflecting, what am I actually thinking about this? And how else can I think about this situation? Obviously, we're going to have, when we're emotionally dysregulated, we're not taking the time to relax. We're not in the point where we're reflecting about the other ways that we could think about it. I always use my husband as an example because I always share my life experience. My husband got dinged at the grocery store, and it was I think he was just going up for hot dog buns, and it's now the most expensive hot dog buns he's purchased. And and of course I've been in the resiliency mode this week, and I'm like, well, I'm going to think that the person that dinged you was, an older woman who doesn't even know that she did it, and maybe just has no idea. She has no idea. So it's also how we want to think about those situations. Do we want to assume the worst? And I'm sure John can speak more to this, but as humans, we always go to the negative, right? That we're just hardwired to go to the negative first, to go to that negative bias that we have, rather than taking the time to collect all the information of how we can reflect about a situation. And then, of course, responding, right? If we are reacting, we are not responding. And reacting, like you said, the emotions are driving you. That's what's happening. Responding is we're in charge. So Martin Selig, who is the positive psychologist father there down at Penn University and professor, has typed in type of 3 different thinking combinations. Typically, when we want to link our thoughts to our emotions to create resilient thinking, we have to have the 2. there's the thinking habit that it's me. It's always, everything's always my fault. You know, I suck. I can't do this. You know, I'm worthless, which ends up to having, you know, a depression is what ends up happening, which ends up being immobilizing, right? For some people, it's we need to ask ourselves, did anything else contribute to the situation? Is there anyone else involved? Is there other factors? How much of this situation is actually due to me, right? And this me always everything thinking can be really, really hard for a lot of people, and it can be hard for families and communities, right? And then we can have the, you know, blame, blame, blame. This is not me. This is them. They did this. This has nothing to do with me. And not even ask ourselves, how did I contribute to the situation? What do I need to own in this situation? How can I have looked at this different? And we get a lot of anger. Again, both of these type of things are dysregulation. I think quite often we think of emotional dysregulation as being an aggressive situation, but you can get sad and wallow into rumination where you're completely dysregulated with the reality of the situation. And rumination is can be both aggressive and inward and outward. And then there's the resilient thinking that, you know, this is temporary. This won't always be here. Doesn't affect everything. This was today. This was this circumstance. You know, this is not me. And in some cases, we have to be able to think critically of like some of our thinking habits going, are we catastrophizing? Are we personalizing? Are we externalizing? Magnifying, minimizing, right? Magnifying, minimizing. Are we mind reading? Are we emotionally reasoning? And one of my favorites is the shoulding, you know, the shoulding all over yourself or shoulding all over someone else. Yes, take it personal. I love that one. Quit taking it personal is so important. I think to both thinking habits, whether you're depressed or whether you're feeling, you know, super aggressive of blaming someone else. So we really have to sit and combine these two to have resiliency in our lives of what is it that I go to? Do I go to, and to tell you honestly, I feel like we go through all of them, right? There tends to be some people that lean through more of the always me, always someone else. And, you know, and then there's good days and there's good weeks, right? So really, you know, the big factor with resilient people is that they're flexible. They're flexible and they challenge their thoughts. They challenge their thoughts. They challenge their viewpoints. That's why resiliency is such an inside job, right? It's such an inside job of acknowledging thinking patterns. You know, I you know, grew up in a culture that was very much, you know, when I heard about cousins and I moved to Gravenhurst, I assumed that I was getting, you know, 20 new best friends, right? And it's like, oh, this is not the family dynamic where it's like everybody's BFFs and we hang out, you know? So there's certain beliefs that happen even culturally, very much a patriarch in my household and culture that you know, if I see an ounce of misogyny, it's like, you know, I get into that big place. So I've got to constantly challenge our beliefs and, you know, and have that flexible thinking. And those are the big character traits of resilient people, is that their ability to look and think about things, not just through their viewpoints, but through the community lens, through, you know, their spouse's lens, through their children's lens, right? Because a thought is just a thought, it may not be true. So resilient thinking habits, you know, personal, me, not me, being accurate about who and what is responsible, permanent, you know, resilient thinking, we're looking for temporary aspects. We're not looking for the always everything mindset. We're not looking for that always everything. We're looking for specific aspects, right? Just what is pervasive. Does anybody have any questions or comments while I'm just going along here? No, we're okay. So this is a CAR model that is used to actually assist in the process of resilient thinking, especially with emotional dysregulation, impulse control. This is a tool, right? So if we can actually start being more of an observer of our thoughts and going to the circumstance, what's our automatic thought and what's our reaction? So something happens, what is it? And getting down to chunking it down. This happened, and dispelling how you feel. Like, how did I actually feel? Getting it all out. What's your automatic, response to being cut off, at the grocery store? Or what's your response to, I came home to dinner, not to dinner tonight, and my husband was the first one home, and I always cook dinner. What is your automatic thought that you go to, right? Because when your thoughts and feelings are combined, it's going to relate to your actions. So this CAR model is used as a tool to promote resilient thinking by getting you to think about, again, emotional dysregulation, impulse control, the causal analysis, empathy, giving yourself realistic optimism, and obviously leading to self-efficacy, which is competence, right? Both of these two, the thinking and the emotional pieces, promote the resilient thinking. So we can take responsibility for what's your part, what's true about the situation, and always looking for the temporary, like how long, is it, this a short-lived issue? Is this a chronic issue? And being specific, finding those little details to be specific, and also looking for the controllable aspects of the situation of what can I do, right? Because resilient thinkers look at problems as challenges and opportunities for learning. So here's a more detail about the CAR model, giving a brief description of who, what, where, when, recording your automatic thoughts. And this is for you, right? This is not for you to be working out with someone. This is for you to be reflective. Vividly recall the self-talk. Were you beating yourself taking any of yourself? Because this is just a tool for you to use in one of what we mentioned, the 3 R's, the relax. This is the reflect portion, and then we're able to respond, right? So the CAR model is, it's a reflection tool. And journaling is a great tool. Journaling is a great tool with getting yourself dysregulated and helping your emotions regulate. Also for impulse control, obviously you're not, screaming, young, crying. If you're able to, read what you put out there and give it away, and sometimes it's just that release, right? And just to recording the intensity can also help you identify whether you're this always everything mindset, or this too shall pass, and it's a temporary, this too shall pass. I do want to show Dr. Lucy Hone, who she's wrote a book called Resiliency and Grieving. She really specialized in the resiliency and grieving, because there can be resiliency in relationships, resiliency, you can just apply it to everywhere. But I did think it was really great how, oh, here we go here. How GAP's doing some wonderful work, and I just was wanting to touch on the community piece that I think Dr. Lucy Hone does so well. What is the audio again?
Yeah.
Sorry, you cut out there, Jess.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So you can either click on your link, or you can just stop sharing altogether and bring up the YouTube and share that from there. I don't know which one you want to.
Let's see if it's going here. No.
So if you stop sharing your screen, so up top there should be like a stop sharing. Yep.
Yeah.
And then if you bring up it through YouTube, so not through your
Yeah.
PowerPoint, but through YouTube. So bring it up and then share screen and hit the YouTube, share the YouTube screen.
Okay. I'm sorry, guys.
Take your time. It's fine.
So I'm start.
Did you get the YouTube up, Jheniffe?
Well, I don't see it on my share screen.
So it might be under something called Windows, or Kelly's also really good at Zoom.
Yeah, it's usually not, it won't show you. So it's where your browser is. So it's not going to show you the video.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. And I think you need to enable the audio though.
Kelly, where's the
So your volume, you have to turn the volume up on your computer, or you have to do it through where the mute button is. There's a little tiny arrow. You click on that, and it'll allow you to access the audio there as well.
Okay.
Thanks, Kelly.
No worries. Deep breath, Jheniffe. We've got this.
Yeah, no, this is what resiliency is all about. And with me and technology, it's just like, right?
The fact that people are even relying on me for tech advice is
Right?
like massive.
Okay. I got my sharing screen.
So your volume on your laptop, wherever that, or your computer,
Yeah,
wherever that is it up? And do you have headphones in?
No.
Okay, that's the other.
So I think, Jheniffe, did you go next, that little arrow next to your mute button?
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Audio settings. Right?
Yes, and then you should be able to control the volume in there as well.
Does.
If you want to put the YouTube, you can copy and paste into the chat, and then
Okay.
I will.
Maybe that will work better. I'm sorry, guys.
No, we practice this. We're just learning. It's fine. We can all learn together.
And you know what? Today, see how my screen is black? I don't know what happened there either. I woke up this morning and I'm like, where is this nice contrast of my... So
the only thing now is you'll have to, and I apologize, everyone. You can probably hear my kids in the background. You'll have to allow me to be host again.
Okay. And
so to do that, you go to the participants list. I am, I believe, the first Gravenhurst Against Poverty. You go to the more, and it will say make host.
well, I could do that part. Look at that, Jess.
Yep. And you just have to stop sharing your screen. Can you hear it or no?
No.
Des, do you have your headphones in? No.
Okay. Well, we'll just.
Give me 1 second. I think I figured it out.
This isn't the correct one either.
Oh, that's the copy and paste out of.
Yeah.
Okay. This isn't the correct one, Jheniffe, from the
No.
chat?
No, it's not.
Okay. Let me go back to the chat. We'll try one more
I'm
time.
sorry. If you just put in Lucy Home BBC. Wow.
We're already curveball.
Do you want to share this book with anyone who's like starting off the basics? I'll put it in the chat. It's the workbook. The Aurelia bookstore is really great on this topic. I actually know the name. I do feel like this is like the basics 101, an amazing part to start because there's so many quizzes and there's so many like self-assessment pieces, strategies. And like I said, like really resiliency is a real self-reflection piece. Can't foster resilience without talking about our own resilience. There, I think you got it.
Oh, was it right?
For anybody who looks, it's a great little workbook.
Okay. Just let me know. Is it the top one or which
Sorry.
one?
No, I'm waiting for it to. This one, the top one, yeah. Perfect. Just thought it was so fitting with gap in the work that gets done.
Can you hear that?
No. Okay. Well, that's okay. We're just flowing with it.
We know where to find it now, so we can look it up.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
We will.
Yes, and it's great. Lucy Hone is the one that I did mention. She has a really famous TED Talk as well. She is a resiliency expert. I would call her a resiliency expert. She does the New Zealand Wellbeing Institute for Resiliency, and it has so much experience, struggles while she was working with the government on some of the earthquakes that had happened, and lost her children in a brief car accident and was thrown into resiliency as well. But she really does on the piece that I think that Gap works so hard to talk about community and obviously, resiliency for people that are not seen in society, whether it's people that have, struggled with their mobility or whether it's people that are racialized, how that does impact their resiliency of not being seen in their community and people living within scarcity. So I would definitely go to it because I like Gap. It just was so inspiring to see this little talk and to talk about, I heard again, a couple people mention community and resiliency and the importance of representation and access individuals. And yeah.
I was just going to say that I have heard her when you said that about the TED Talk. I'm pretty sure, Kelly, that Peter Stoltman shared it with us. Yeah. Because of the story of losing children. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And she
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she was working within the community at that time. Obviously, New Zealand government being so progressive, they have earthquakes and they're sending out resiliency experts to get into the community. And yeah, she had lost her children really abruptly, her daughter really abruptly. So was in the throes of it and really was discouraged by. Yeah, go ahead, Kelly.
I was just going to say, I think it's incredible to the resilient neighbors that are in our community that are
Yeah.
sharing their journeys with us, specifically on our compassion series. When we have those brave voices coming out to say, these are the ways that I was resilient, it resonates with a lot of community members. And so, yeah, I think it's incredible that resiliency comes in all different shapes and size and race and color and,
Yeah.
gender. And it's beautiful when we can, feel comfortable to share how we're resilient, because it shows someone just as easy as just sharing, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's also too like that the importance of being able to connect is so vital to being resilient, right? When you're isolating, you don't have those relationships. And I'm hearing that it's been such a great space for people to have gap and have this piece to have come together with like-minded people, and how that fosters resiliency. We all have that. We've all had that friend that's like, you thought they were your friend, and then you realized how much you actually valued the relationship when shit went down, right? Like when they showed up in your life and it was hard, right? It's the fusion of connection, right? And I do feel like, those people that with lived experience, and myself included, being in these roles and being the same size circles and making those connections are invaluable, right? And connection is everything. And I echo what you're saying of having neighbors and community members and having thriving that are resilient, for everyone. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Jheniffe, for
Thank you.
the presentation
Yeah.
and sharing so candidly with everyone on the call today. And we definitely look forward to having more of your presence during the speaker series, and connecting it with the lived experience is really important as we build that community compassion. So I will